All right, on this episode of How to Start a Business, we are with Gunjan and Kritika. And these guys are both heavily involved in the Bollywood movie, acting, TV, radio scene, commercial stuff. And the reason they're here on this episode is that just like starting a business, they are their own businesses and they've built their own careers. And I thought there's a lot that we can learn from them from this channel. So we'll start with Gunjan. We'll do a quick overview about like what her background is, and then we'll go to Kritika. So Gunjan is a co-anchor on Zoom TV. Zoom TV, for those from America that don't know, is kind of like E! News, where it's celebrity gossip and news and all that kind of stuff. It's like the who's getting married, who did what, that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Then she also has a love radio advice station on Ishq. It's the Delhi, Bombay, like the radio channel, correct? Did I nail it?
Yes, you did.
Good, better. All right, and this is Kritika. She is known for I would say you're known for a series called Engineering Girls, but she does a lot of commercials, a lot of things like that. Ads. What was the last ad? They're all Indian products, and I'm not a pro with Indian products.
Oh, you want me to name them?
Yeah.
The Maggie, Chings, YY, Amazon, Myntra, Nivea, Vaseline, etc.
Okay, so because you guys are in an essence of yourself, your own businesses. The first question is what do you feel like was your first real big break as like an entrepreneur in the Indian media scene?
It was probably when I won Miss India. So I won a title called Miss India Supranational in 2012 when I went abroad to represent the country as the country winner. But I would say that was a big break, but I don't think I had still gotten a hang of how to be an entrepreneur with this and how to like really encash on this opportunity. And I would say it was sort of a missed opportunity for me at that point of time. The first break where I thought that this is where I had a plan and I knew how I wanted to go about it was when I was hosting a sports league. It's called Kabaddi. It's one of the most famous sports tournaments that's happening in India right now. Very big, publicized and everything. And when I got a chance to host that, I think after that, I got a little hang of what and how I wanted to do things.
So that was your big break?
Yes.
What was your big break?
My first commercial, I would say, when I faced the camera for the first time was for this Indian noodles, not Indian actually, Nestle, Maggie noodles. So that was my first big break when I was in front of the camera and I realized this is what I want to do. I want to perform for the rest of my life.
So from a business perspective, what would be the biggest thing that's helped you like grow your career or to like maybe like generate revenue? Because I think it's one thing to like be a model or to be an actor, and I think it's another thing to make it an actual business that like funds you and your lifestyle and your career.
I think there's going to be a lot of hits and misses one has to be ready with. If you want to be, and you have to understand that this is sort of a career or a place where you have to be, jack of all trades, along with being master of one, so you have to be good at one thing, but then at the same point in time, you have to like reborn and find different things to do. For example, when I had won Miss India, I thought I wanted to be a ramp model and that's what I started with, but obviously it wasn't paying me much. But then I had another job. I came from a journalism background and I was working with a sports company. So I thought, financially that was helping me a little, but then I knew if I wanted to make this a career and make this financially stable for me, I had to understand what more could I do, because you're a freelancer, opportunities could come and go or whatever. So that is when I was open to the idea of radio, I was open to the idea of anchoring, and I wanted to know, and I think somewhere I also realized that if you want to be an actor and if you want to be paid for one of those gigs, you have to have that stability. And I think radio and anchoring became that stability for me, that now I can look at acting prospects and I found my master, what I was mastering one thing, and then now I'm trying to be jack of all trades. So you have to be smart about redefining yourselves and having have your eggs in too many baskets. You have to do that.
Because you're also kind of like you're an attorney. you're your own business manager, you're your own social media expert. You also have to be like, you're your own product, so you have to focus on like acting school and all that kind of stuff. And it's a lot to keep track of.
So I would say one has to create their own brand. Like you would want to be known as Gunjan Saini or Kritika Avasthi. So we are a brand in our own self, and we have to be very careful with the kind of work we are picking up, how we want to be showcased, like what our brand stands for. That is when the brands or big companies approach you for what you stand for. So similar brands would approach you who can relate to your thinking or the kind of work you do. And yes, in the beginning you have to manage your own work, you have to be on calls, you have to go for castings, auditions, and then you get selected for roles or shows or films or whatever. But then later on you get you get a manager, so someone is always looking into your work and they are arranging meetings or auditions or basically connecting with the entire industry. Though it's a very close-knit industry, but there are a lot of people that you need to be constantly in touch with for creating more work opportunities for you.
All right, so let's talk about like clients and revenue models. Let's say if someone wanted to start out and do their first commercial in India, like so it's your first one, so maybe it's not like a Nestle, but your first one, what would be like the compensation or range that someone might expect for like the first project?
Also it depends from brand to brand, and
let's go for like, what would be a high-end brand would they pay for like your first gig, and what would a low-end brand pay? Assuming like you're like, there's like 2 or 3 people in the commercial, so it's like you're not just like some random extra.
Yeah, I would say it's going to be bare minimum, right? Like in case you hit a jackpot, which
What is bare minimum? Like what is that?
like it could be as little as 2,000 or 3,000, like or 5,000.
3,000.
5,000, yeah. Like
Indian rupees?
Indian rupees.
US dollars?
Indian
Eskimo
rupees.
nuggets?
Indian rupees.
Indian rupees?
And but what I've had friends who've done great ads, and they're just 2 of them, but because it's just their first thing, they get paid like peanuts. And and if you're not smart at cracking a deal, or if you really want to just get on the camera and test waters, you would take something which is not paying you good enough. So don't go with what the first ad pays you. I think you've also realized that it's how many ads you've done and how many times people have seen you, and what is the character, what is the range of characters that you've shown on camera is how you now start getting compensated, right? Otherwise, the first few ads are just hit and miss. You can like hit a jackpot, get like 100,000, or you could just be getting peanuts, but it has less to do with you, but more with that one-off opportunity, but that can't sustain you.
So the first ad that I did was a montage ad, so it had many characters and many scenes. Though I got paid a decent amount, it was 25,000 for 4 or 5 hours of work. But again, as Gunjan said, it totally depends on what character you're playing, or if it's you're the only solo actor in the ad, then you get paid a lot. So we have people charging like a lakh per day, or maybe 50 lakhs a day. Depends on your star power or how long you've been in the industry, and also depends on the brand.
And 50 lakhs a day would be for someone who's like a industry veteran, Bollywood.
Yeah,
definitely a Bollywood star. Definitely.
So if someone's been doing it for a while, maybe like 3 to 5 years, like what type of per gig they land, what would be like a fair expectation for like, do we just go by like a day rate?
Something around 80,000 to 1 lakh for an ad.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's one day or?
1 day.
Okay.
Yeah, ads are a different budget, right? So that's the kind of money somebody who's been there for that long. And actually with ads, it really has very little to do with how long you've been there. Like, it's more about how much do you fit the character. And if you do, they'll be open to remunerate you accordingly. It's not something that, because you've done 100 ads, you will get paid that much.
I haven't done any ads.
So 0 for you.
0.
0.
What about like sponsored posts? What are the going rates in India for sponsored posts on Instagram?
That again depends on the number of followers you have. For someone like who has 4 million followers would probably get like a lakh per post, like a static post. So I have around 53,000 followers, so I get something around 20,000 per static post for one Instagram post. So again, it depends on the followers, it depends on the brand, but something around like starting is 20,000 per static post and can go on for, I don't know, maybe a lakh or something.
What, like, from a career standpoint, what was your biggest mistake?
Biggest mistake. I think the fact that I thought, because this is an industry where you have to be always like, I think two things. One, that you have to be your own marketing person. And for me, I have been somebody who's really good at selling products. Like whichever company I work with, somehow it just came very easily to me to be able to sell them and to be able to believe in them. But for some reason, I think I was a kind of person who just could never speak about myself or like sell myself as a product. Like you said, we're now business in our own self and we have to sell our own image. And I think I couldn't do that for the longest time. I was like, why do I have to put myself out there? Why do I have to network? Why do I have to talk about me? Because people should be able to see that, but people are not going to be able to see that. Just like if you were to work for a company and you had to push the product, no matter how good that is, in the same way you have to do that for yourself, and you can't just put the onus on somebody else to come and see the value in you. And second thing was to never be to stop being on the lookout for other opportunities, because every opportunity in this field has a time limit. It has an expiry date, and I think one of the big projects that I got, I became a little complacent about it, and I wasn't really looking out for things, and I thought things will come to me, and they didn't. And I saw a huge slump in my career, and I think it was because I thought, oh, I've made it, now things will come to me, but it never comes to you. You always have to be on the lookout. Even if you're like hands deep into something, you have to be constantly making sure there is something more coming. You have to be ready for exploring. You have to have things in the pipeline. So be ready to create that pipeline all the time.
What's been your biggest mistake?
I don't think I've...
What killed your career, Kritika?
Nothing. My career is just budding right now. It's not getting killed. But I don't think I've made any mistakes yet. Or I feel that I've not.
What about like building a team? Like I feel like, so from an entrepreneurial standpoint, I always look at kind of like having the right team around you is kind of like the key to success. But I feel like in your guys' industry, it's much more of like a lot of like lone actors where you hope to get sucked into a project. But like, is just like the concept of like, hey, like let's say like, I mean, like for example, if I were to start like a YouTube channel, I'd want to build like a team around me here in India. And I think that might like, that's probably a foreign concept, but like of all the things that have to be done, I think it's just so hard for one person to do it all. Like, is that something that actors are doing here in India?
So I have a lot of friends who are YouTubers, and some of them go solo. Like they have their own cameras, own lighting, and some of them do have a team. But for people who do it all by themselves, I don't know how they do it. It is so much work. Like every week, beginning of the week, they have to put up a video, so they have to think of ideas, they have to write their own script, they have to shoot themselves, lighting, this, that, blah, blah, blah. There's just too much work, and especially when there's a brand involved, there's so many deliverables that they have to put up for the brand because the brand wants like this. So it's like having your own production house within yourself, and that is a lot of work for one person. So some of them do have a team. For example, I closely work with Bunic. So Nikunj started Bunic. So now he has a couple of his friends who edit for him, one of them is a sound guy, one of them handles light. So they all started, I think, with probably a small camera from a home setup, but now they have started they have their own office, they have their own team. So it definitely probably starts from one person, but it is too much work for just like one human being. So you definitely need a very good team to, even though a small one, but you do need a team.
But a lot of the teams I'd assume would be like family teams when they start off, right? Like in the acting space, it'd be like the mom who believes in them, or is a lot of it just like they just break away and do it on their own?
Absolutely. I think when you're starting out, you are one man's army. You are like marketing for yourself. I mean, we have shot each other's audition videos all the time, or we've seeked help from our friends to shoot things for us, and
right.
And I think like as actors, we forget that there is some sort of investment that's required at their end, like investment to, like for example, we both realized at one point in time, I realized it a little later, but she realized sooner, that she does need social media that needs to be much bigger and she needs to be there. And she worked on it like consistently. It came a little later to me, so now I'm working on it. But I think you have to, there are so many aspects of your life and you have to reach out and ask out for help whenever and as and when. And yeah, the team definitely comes from family and then branches out. And I think a lot of people are scared of having a manager, or they're scared of having a company manage them. Like I still haven't found a great fit that can manage me, and you have come to a place now that you've found a company that can manage you. But I think it's a process. You have to start within one man army. You have to believe in yourself before people start believing in you, and it could be a little long process until you get there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for sharing your business tips as Indian Bollywood media moguls. On this episode of How to Start a Business, we are signing out. Thank you guys. Bye.